Welcome to part 3 of our Idiot's Guide to Vampire the Masquerade and the Dark Ages. Basically the same thing, more or less. Today we're going to talk about character creation. First step, as always, in character creation for an RPG, concept, your character concept, as they call it. It's not really your character concept. When I think character concept in an RPG, I think of the overall concept. Who is this person in a very simple, archetypal kind of sense. But really, in this case, concept is what were you before you became a vampire? Why don't they just call it that? What were you before you became a vampire? There are samples on this page here. Were you a criminal, sort of a jailbird mafioso or drug dealer, whatever? It's important in general, very big on hanging on to your humanity and dealing with becoming this monster. You're now this neonate vampire and you're just holding on to the last vestiges of your humanity. It has no mechanical benefit, you just write it down. Next, you pick your clan. So, as I said previously, there are 13 major clans, and I probably will do a video showcasing all of them in more detail. But in the meantime, check out for yourself on page 68. That's where they start. And you get a little 2-page spread. You have a picture of a quintessential member of that clan, a couple paragraphs describing them, and then they have stuff like nickname. Gives you a sense of what they are. The Malkavians, they're typically insane, so their nickname is Lunatics. Nosferatu, who I think my guy's gonna be a Nosferatu, they're sewer rats. It also tells you stuff like what sect your clan typically belongs to, the appearance you might typically have in general. They also list the background, the type of person that they typically turn to become a vampire, like in the case of Nosferatu. Sometimes they might pick really vain people, because Nosferatu, when you become one, you become a hideous monster. You look the least human out of all of them. And so, if they want to be really cruel, they'll pick someone who's really pretty and, or at least just very vain about their looks and make them hideous, which is sick. I love that. Or they might just pick the derelicts, outcasts of society, because that's basically what the Nosferatu sort of are. They're sewer rats. Also worth noting in this section is character creation, which will just give you advice, not necessarily a mandate, but advice on how to distribute your attribute points, or dots as they call them. Nosferatu spend a lot of time in the sewers, and in general they look really hideous, so you don't want to be seen, otherwise you would break the masquerade. So stealth is pretty important to them, but you don't have to follow it if you don't want to. One thing you definitely want to check out in this section is weaknesses. This will have some penalty that you get because of the clan blood going through your, or I guess not really running through, just sort of chilling there in your veins. In this case, Nosferatu weakness, they have an appearance rating of 0. Typically, and I guess we can just sort of move on over to the attribute section. We got 9 attributes in 3 different subsections: physical, social, and mental. Typically, they all start with the first pip or the first dot filled in, but Nosferatu, because of their weakness, they actually don't for appearance. That's crossed off, and they can't add additional dots into appearance. They're always hideous. Now we have a total of 15 dots to distribute amongst our attributes, but we do have some guidelines. First of all, we have to rank the 3 groups in terms of what our character is best at, what they're average at, and what they suck at. So if you want to make a big dumb brute character, you'd make physical your primary, social probably your secondary, and mental your tertiary. Now this ranking determines how many dots you get to distribute amongst that subgroup. Your primary gets 7, your secondary gets 5, and your tertiary gets 3. For my character, I want to make him a really smart manipulator kind of character. So I'm going to put a little 1 next to mental because I want that to be the main one, and he's going to get 7 dots to distribute. Social, I'm going to make the weakest because he's going to be really good at manipulation, but nothing else. So I'm going to make that my 3rd one, and that's going to give me 3 points to distribute. Put that in manipulation, he's going to be rank 4 in manipulation, which is pretty good. And my secondary is going to be physical. I'm going to have 5 points to distribute. I kind of like the idea of him being almost like Gollum-esque, like from Lord of the Rings. Like, he seems dumber or more scared, useless than he actually is. So he should look like physically weak, but people love to beat on him. Can take a big beating. He's gonna have weak strength, but he's gonna have good dexterity and stamina. Then I'm gonna distribute my 7 points amongst my 3 mental attributes as I see fit. I think I see him more as a quick think on his feet kind of a person, very observant, plays the role of kind of a dummy, but he's always watching and he's always thinking, he's very quick about it. So I might put more emphasis on perception and wits over intelligence, but still, he's no dummy. And I might come back to these and add more later. Eventually you're going to get freebie points, which you can spend on all of this other stuff we're dealing with right now, but we'll come back to that. Next we have our second set of stats, abilities, and we basically do kind of the same thing. There's 3 subgroups, talents, skills, and knowledges, and we have to rank them in order, primary, secondary, tertiary, and they get different numbers of pips or dots to distribute. In this case though, because there's a lot more abilities to deal with, it's 13, 9, and 5. Did I get that right? This one is actually a bit harder to do. It's easier to organize the other 3, the attributes, into a archetypal kind of character. It's a bit harder though. Knowledge, skills, and talents. But I guess that depends on your character concept. Your actual character concept, not just what you were beforehand. But if in general you're a very bookish, learnery type, then yeah, it makes sense that knowledge would be high up on the list. But it depends on who you are. I think with this character I'm going to focus less on knowledge. He's still very new to this world, but he's very observant, clever. He's going to learn things as he goes. I think I'm going to make knowledge third, and I don't know, flip a coin with the other 2. Okay, so before we move on, I actually did technically skip a step. Select your nature and demeanor, parentheses, archetypes. This is kind of dumb how they word it, because it's not really accurate. I mean, your nature is your true self, your demeanor is what you show to the world, but when they combine these in the book and say, oh, it's an archetype, but then you actually look up the list of archetypes and it's not necessarily the same thing. An archetype is a type of character that you might be, and because of that, you can get a mechanical benefit. For example, you could be, let's say, a survivor. No matter what happens, no matter the odds or opposition, the survivor always manages to pull through and blah blah blah. Regain 1 point of willpower, we'll get to that in a minute, whenever you survive a threatening situation through tenacity or when another persists in spite of opposition due to your counsel. Which I guess could inform or be attached to your nature and demeanor, like this idea of being a survivor, but not necessarily so. Like, there's so many different combinations. I don't know why they even make this attempt at implying or saying that they would be attached in any way whatsoever. They're totally separate things. Who you are and how you present yourself is very different than this other aspect. I mean, I guess they're supposed to be tied, but they don't have to be, and it almost feels like you're limiting yourself when you do that. I'm ignoring this. Your archetype is just another aspect to your character that's important. That's the way I think of it. So my character's nature is that he's actually very manipulative, intelligent, and thoughtful, but his demeanor is sort of a almost crazy Gollum-esque weirdo. This subservient, toady Weasley kind of a character that's really too pathetic to be seen as too much of a threat, but not so pathetic to where he would be useless. Like, people would want to keep him around, at the very least, I guess, as a punching bag. As I said, he can take a punch. And as for the archetype, well, there are numerous archetypes that could also fit in with that. I don't know why they have to be attached. It doesn't matter. I'm not doing that. He actually has a cause, I think. Fanatic could work. Yeah, regain a point of willpower whenever you accomplish some task that directly relates to your cause. He has a cause. We'll get more into that in a minute. Next, we move on to advantages, which include 3 different subcategories, although they don't work like the previous, where you rank them and you have X amount of points depending on rank. None of that. We have X amount of points for our backgrounds, X amount of points for our disciplines, and virtues. First, let's talk backgrounds. Backgrounds are more physical assets, followers, or other resources, influence you might have. Maybe there's a mentor. Maybe you have a herd, which is a group of people that you can just feed on at will without any fear of breaking the masquerade. They willingly let you feed on them. Other allies, contacts. Maybe you're famous. Maybe you're of a abnormal generation. Typically when you start out, you're of like a 12th or 13th generation. So you pick a background or multiple backgrounds and you put however many dots in it that you can. So you can have 5 backgrounds, each with 1 dot, or 1 background with 5 dots. And that's what I'm going to do with this character. Put all my points into contacts. He's big on gathering information, observation, and all of that, so it just kind of fits with his overall MO. Now, next is Discipline. Discipline are basically your vampire superpowers. We get 3 dots to spend on however many disciplines we want. Well, up to 3, I guess. 3 disciplines of 1 dot each, or 1 discipline of 3 dots in it, or 2 and 1. You know, whatever combination, you spend dots onto the vampire superpowers. Now I'm going to go into more detail on the magic, or disciplines. Vampire magic sounds way cooler. I'm going to go more into the vampire magic in detail in a separate video, but for now it's worth noting that the points you spend here, these 3 pips on your disciplines, they are restricted based off of your clan, so look at your clan section. Make sure you're putting points into disciplines that you're actually able to put points into. For this character, I'm probably going to pick Obfuscate and put 3 ranks into it, not worry about anything else. It's all about stealth, and because I have 3 ranks in it, I can even change my appearance to act as other people. So I can meet my contacts as other people, so they might not even know me as me, so it's easier to keep up the ruse of being this kind of semi-useless dummy who just happens to know some people and find out some information here and there to be kind of not useless, when really he's this intelligent master manipulator kind of a character. Don't want to draw too much attention to myself, want to fly under the radar, so that's important. Now let's move on to virtues. We have 3 different virtues, although there are alternates for 2 of them. You'll notice the slash. You can have conscience or conviction as one of your virtues, and you can have self-control or instinct as one of your virtues. And I guess you kind of have to pick them together, not necessarily. They make the most sense if you pick them together. So with most characters, a big part is sort of being this new vampire and dealing with slowly losing your humanity and becoming this monster and beast, and dealing with the guilt of that and all that. It's supposed to be a big part of your character, and if so, you'd pick conscious and self-control to represent that, but you might pick a character where you're just kind of monstrous and you don't care about that stuff, or maybe you're an older character or whatever else, at which point you would pick conviction and instinct. Conviction has more to do with your determination in the face of failure, as opposed to conscience, which has a bit more to do with being shaken up by the monstrous things you did or being asked to do or whatever else. And instinct represents how well your character can sort of ride the wave, control the beast while giving into it, like you're not denying it. It's more you accept your true nature and are very okay with it. This character, he's definitely the second one, the second part. We're going to cross off conscious and self-control. He doesn't need to worry about those. He's all about the conviction and the instinct. Most characters, you just go with conscious and self-control. But anyway, we got 7 dots to distribute amongst these, and also courage. Courage is your ability to deal with dangers like gunfire or sunlight, which, you know, you're a vampire, that can hurt you. So really, these all sort of boil down to 3 different aspects of your will. Although I guess I shouldn't say it like that. Willpower is a separate thing entirely. So we have stuff like humanity and willpower, which is based off of your virtues, so those are really important. We also want to roll for our starting pool of blood points. To take a d10, you roll it. 2, I got 2, why not? It's the only thing that's randomized. It's just your starting resource that you have to deal with. I guess I'm going to be particularly thirsty when I start in the campaign that will never actually exist. Alright, that is it for today. Next time we're going to continue our character creation, but really taking a detour into the magic system in general. All the different disciplines and powers related to it, so see you then.